Sidetracked, the music podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Sidetracked Music Podcast. We're back again. Zephyr, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And Zach is also in the room, in the virtual room. What's going on?
I am. Here we begin with more awkward hellos. It's more of a classic.
I don't know. I need
podcast beginning now.
Oh God, yeah. I need to work on that. I don't know. I need to.
Yeah, we really
I should
do, guys. This is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, and today we also have a guest in the podcast. We have Albert Genower, who goes under the name of Genower, who at the time of recording will be releasing his debut album soon, but by the time you've listened to this, it's already out, so we'll have the link to the album in the show notes. But Albert, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to talking about some music, and I'm also glad that I've got something to do in the morning and been dragged out of bed before midday, so I'm happy to be here.
It's always a good thing.
Well said. Very, very professional. Okay. Well, as usual, we'll interview, semi-interview Albert about the new album and his inspirations and all that in part 2 for the Artist Spotlight. But as usual, part 1 is going to be the brief. And this week I set the brief, and we've gone for niche singles. And to make it even stricter, we've set a kind of Spotify streams limit of 10 million streams. So, Zephyr, what have you brought in?
So I've brought a song by this artist that I found, I think through Radio 6. My dad actually showed it to me. She's called Sampa the Great. And she's Zambian, and she was raised in Botswana and is now based in Melbourne. And she released this amazing single on the 5th of June called Final Form. And I just think it's such a cool track, and I just want to play it straight away, and then we can talk about it afterwards. So yeah, here's Final Form by Sampa the Great.
The lace lady travel with grace, baby. I can't afford to cover the course, of course, maybe settle that one in court, cause judging by the basics, y'all already comfortable, stuck up in the matrix. Shit is basic, patch credentials, but understand your favorite rapper, peep my gold potential. I'm out of shame, been past it, trying to fit the circle cause I don't know how to act shit. Half of y'all was steady insecure, don't try to backflip, just because the seasoning and flow's already active. Only 4 years, fantastic, young veteran.
So that was Final Form by Sampa the Great, and I found it, I think I already mentioned this, I found it on Radio 6, and Radio 6 is great for all these sort of niche sort of songs, because they always have these great DJs who, like Giles Peterson, and I'm trying to think of other ones, but I'm losing, Norman J as well, I think he used to play, and they always find like these kind of really new, interesting musicians that they can just put out there, and you can always find the greatest stuff. And that's why I think the radio is really good, because I keep hearing, like, everyone now uses Spotify and streaming stuff, but I think a good thing about the radio is you can find stuff like this, and this is just such a cool hip hop like track. It's got like, it's obviously sample based. I think the main sample is from Stay Away From Me by the Silvers, which is a funk tune, unsurprisingly, always linking back to funk on the Sidetrack Music Podcast. But but yeah, it's just kind of a cool rap song. I don't know, there's not much else to say about it. What do you guys think about it?
That's all I have to say. I love the horn samples in it. I think there's a moment around the middle where the horns drop out, and then there's like another section for like literally 5 seconds, and then it goes back into horns. I'm like, man, that's cool. Yeah,
it does that bridge thing. That thing comes back at the end. I think it's a really cool bit. It's like I think that might be the sample from Long Red, which is by Mountain. I think that's just a kind of short clip, like sped up and chopped up, and just kind of put in there. And it's really like, it's a cool break, and it feels like it's like a takeaway from the song, and I want more of it. Like, you only get, like you said, like 5 seconds of it, and it's just quite weird, but it's really cool. But yeah,
that bit in the middle where the horns drop out is really cool, because it's such a driving force for the like whole because you got the really long intro where that's like the thing you're listening to, and then it's still so prominent even over the rapping, and then when it drops out, it just feels like it's kind of opened up so much and got all this space, which it's such a cool effect that it creates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those horns are really prominent. I mean, you had like 30 seconds of just incredibly long horn notes, and you're thinking, when's this going to stop?
Yeah, I always do feel the intro's a little bit dragging on, but I still think it's quite cool. Like it really builds up. It's like the tension. Like you think like 20 seconds into the intro, you're like, oh, surely it must have kicked in now, and it just doesn't. It just gives you another 20 seconds. But yeah, Jules, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel it's not a very musical comment, but that horn line I have heard before somewhere in an advert or something, or like a soundtrack. I can't put my finger on it. So if anyone knows, please get in touch, because it's going to bug me for ages.
I think it's like Oakwood, maybe. Like I got the power. I'm not even sure. I know what you mean, though. I've heard it too.
I've heard it before, and it's
it
just
has
in the
actually
back
been
of my head.
sampled. That "Stay Away From Me," which I think is the horns bit, has been sampled in 3 other songs. I don't know any of them, but I mean, I can list.
I don't think it's a song
ones
that I can think of. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, is it not?
I'll
a song?
also
Do you
give you
think
some.
It's like a little advert.
I'm sure. I think it's an advert, like a home-based thing or something. I can't remember. Anyway,
he's got that home-based sponsorship on the Sidetrack Music podcast.
No, we don't.
Yeah, obviously.
We've gone through the sponsorships before. Other home supply stores are available, as usual. I think it's from the Picture House. There's one of the Picture House adverts that they play like before the films. I think that's what they use it. Anyway, I'll have to check.
Oh, I love those.
Sorry.
Getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
Sidetracked again.
Yeah. To finish off on Zephyr song, I'll give the stream number. You've snuck in just under 10 million with 9,176,637 streams on Spotify. So well done there. You've manipulated the numbers well.
I have gone,
just under.
Yeah, just about made it. And so Albert's choice is even closer to the maximum. You've got 9,533,106 streams.
Zephyr just scraped in with his. If you thought Zephyr,
you've cut it fine as well.
In with his, I have cut it fine. I almost didn't do it because I didn't think it was that niche, and then I asked how much was a niche single, and I was told 10 million on Spotify. So just managed to make it in. But my song is So Real by Jeff Buckley, the late great Jeff Buckley, who was one of the most fantastic rock singers of the 90s. And it was he only did one album during his lifetime before his tragic, very, very young death. And it was called Grace, and he's most known for his cover of Hallelujah, which is probably the most famous version of the song now. But this particular song, it's really quite unique. The chords are quite unique. It kind of the beginning of it has this kind of intro where he kind of slides around a bit on the guitar, kind of sort of ambiguously, and then he kind of alternates between E diminished and E minor in this really kind of dark sound, and he's got the most fantastic singing voice, and he has these incredible leaps. He leaps up to some really high notes, switching to his head voice, and it's just really catchy and really good, and it's got some really kind of unique shapes he's playing on the guitar, so I just think it's a great song.
Should we play that now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's So Real by Jeff Buckley.
So Real by Jeff Buckley. Yeah, really cool track. I haven't really heard that chord sequence before that much in kind of pop and a modern setting. From as you were saying, E diminished to E minor. Actually, could you demonstrate that for us again, Albert? Because just for the audience to hear.
Yeah, I can. And it's also interesting because I'll play it first. Those are the exact shapes he's using. So you get the really between and that real tension, and then the real resolution on that. And exactly. It's a really good sound. And also, not only the chords he's using, but the way he's playing them on the guitar, the shapes he's using, are not shapes that I've seen in any other song. And he's really sliding. He's does something that I've not really seen in pop or rock music at all. I've only ever seen it in classical guitar, really, where he takes a kind of shape of a chord. You get in classical guitar a lot where you take a shape of a chord and you'll slide it up and down the neck, and that will the neck of the guitar, and therefore you get these really weird dissonances, like to that kind of thing, where you get dissonances with the strings that you're not fretting. But he does that in a kind of pop and rock setting where he goes, which is quite a unique sound, and it could almost, if he was finger picking, it could almost be kind of a classical guitar kind of thing.
You know, that voice leading bit, the bit that you showed just before, that reminded me of, I think it's Kashmir. Is it by Led Zeppelin? Do you know the one I mean? You know the yeah, the kind of that sort of tension. No, but I mean more like the voice leading tension notes. It's kind of that kind of. I mean that.
Well, Kashmir's also got the tension because the drums are playing 4/4 and the strings and guitar are playing 3/4. So you got the rhythmic as well as the. Yeah,
that makes that does make sense actually. Yeah. No, I always remember there's a weird rhythm thing in that song, isn't there? But we're not talking about that song. We're talking about "So Real" by Jeff Buckley.
That's
so
a very obscure song.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Well, so I was just going to say that "So Real." I'm happy that I was introduced to this song because I hadn't heard it before. I feel like a lot of Jeff Buckley's greats are overlooked because, as you said, like "Hallelujah," it's in the same album as "Hallelujah," and most people only really know "Hallelujah" if they're not that into music. Yeah, it's a really nice album. I listened to quite a few of the other tracks as well. Yeah, would highly recommend.
Nice. Well, we'll move on to Zach, your single. I see that you have broken with shame the limit, the 10 million stream limit. Can you explain yourself?
Well, you see, Jules, when you selected the brief of niche singles, I don't think you quite realised how difficult it would be to find a niche single that we could actually play on the podcast, because most of them don't have any copyright rights because no copywriting companies know they exist. How it works. So after much trial and error, going through all the singles that I wanted to play that were under 10 million, I finally found one which was, yes, shamefully just above 10 million at a shameful 15 million, I think.
Just above? That's quite a bit above.
You just listened to it 5 million times before the podcast to prepare yourself.
You know what? It's a good song, so we'll allow it.
Great song. Okay, we'll allow it. Thank you. So I picked Mean It in the Morning by Loyal Karma, which is off his debut album, I think, Yesterday's Gone. And I really, really like this track. It kind of combines like lots of elements of kind of bossa nova, actually, I found, and very laid back hip hop and a bit of jazz in there as well. We love a bit of jazz in there. Now, before I talk more about it, I'm going to play it as well because it's very well known. So this is "Mean It in the Morning" by Loyal Karma.
Only say it if you mean it in the morning. To me it seems a little more important to see if she be breezy with that easiness of water. Before we get all caught up in the cooling, but the way that I was falling back in 09. Fidget but feeling it was go time. Sitting with my missus didn't show signs. Lines that were mine, kissing on that cold spine. Love was all and hopeless for I focused on that cold sign. Sitting with my bro Clef, listening to most death. Waiting on the day's pay, promising to post checks. But didn't have a bigger brother with no bears. Melting on the inside.
Great, so that was "Mean It in the Morning" by Loyal Karma. It's so lovely. We were all vibing it here, playing it to ourselves. It's kind of, I love Loyal Karma's rapping style because he sits like very on the back of the beat, so he's always very laid back, and it feels very calming to listen to, which is quite different to a lot of other rap out there. Some people can be put off that like it sometimes sounds aggressive or I don't know, angry. I actually suggest this to people who haven't listened to rap before as a kind of starting point into rap. Yeah, exactly.
It feels like you're like kind of sitting there having a coffee with him and just kind of having like a conversation. Like I know rap is just kind of talking rhythmically. Just talking rhythmically. That sounds really derogatory, but it's not. It's talking rhythmically, but in a kind of cool way. But the way he does it feels like you're actually just sitting there having a conversation with him, and he's just kind of got that natural flow. He's just kind of laid back, chilled. not trying to get in your face, trying to tell you something. He's just kind of, talking, and it's really nice.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And also, what helps us with that is that his lyrics are often very honest and very relatable. And again, this is why I suggest it to people who have like bad misconceptions about rap, that it's all kind of sexist lyrics, like all just derogatory and like, not anything like this is almost like spoken word. And he takes a lot of inspiration from poets and stuff for his lyrics. Which is why I love Lord Kana. There's also I have some little known facts about Lord Kana that'll make you love him as well. He loves cooking, which is seen in some of his songs that are named after famous chefs like Ottolenghi and Carluccio. And he set up his own cooking school for children with ADHD called Chili Con Carne.
Hey, that's a good one. I think we can all get behind that pun.
That's the dad joke of the episode.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm not bringing one. Sorry.
It's a dad joke, and it's a cooking school. I mean, don't you all love him now? Isn't he just the best?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I actually watched the documentary about him doing that. How he set that up, and it's because he said he's always struggled with like his ADHD and kind of like not being able to express his ideas, and he found that through music he could do that, and he kind of just wants to give opportunities because, and like you said, he loves cooking, and it's just a really sweet thing that he does, and I think he does it in southeast London somewhere. I'm not actually sure where, but
it is. It's in South London where he's based. Also, actually, his real name is Ben Coyle Lana, but his rapper name is Loyal Kana, which is a reference to his dyslexia that he struggled with as a child. I just love when stage names just have like a backstory like that really links it to their past and their roots. There's some more stuff we can talk about in a minute in the morning. Sorry, Jules, you were going to say something.
No, I was just it kind of ties in basically what you and Zeph was saying about his kind of rapping style. And yeah, it's just very easy to listen to. And the fact that it's kind of slightly slower and more laid back, combining with like it brings out the honest lyrics that you were talking about. Like you can really, they're kind of front and center. And often the kind of grooves that he's rapping over, very chilled, kind of quite thin, kind of simple, which, means that you can really kind of listen to the lyrics, and on top of that, it's just a really smooth beat underneath that. And I mean, I think this song in particular shows that, because you've got such a lovely guitar line, kind of slightly melancholic, that I'm sure you're going to talk about. And on top of that, you've just got it's just really, really nice to listen to.
Well, yeah, speaking of the beat, this is one of my favorite beats of Lord Kana's. So it's an 8-bar loop, not a 4-bar loop. So it's slightly longer than a lot of his beats, and it has more variation, which makes it, at least for me, more interesting to listen to, because there's more variation in the track. And often like bits will tie together in the beat with his lyrics when the chord changes, and it all fits so perfectly together. So actually, you know what? We can't go through an entire episode without me breaking down some chords. That's become a thing now. So I'm going to do that a bit now. I'm just going to go through the first 4 chords and explain why I think that just fits in with the vibe so perfectly. So the first thing to say is that the first 4 chords take place over a descending bass line. So it goes down from A to G to F and then to C. And usually in music, when you have like a descending bass line or like a descending melody, it kind of gives off like a sad, melancholic, but like slightly contemplative vibe, which really fits in with Mean It in the Morning, which is about like only saying stuff if you mean it, like if you're going to mean it tomorrow, not getting caught up in the moment and thinking about, the meaning of what you're saying and your actions and life as well.
Wow. So deep. How meaningful.
So deep. And anyway, so the chords are as follows. It's A minor 9. forgot to say the rest of the chords. It's A minor 9, then it goes to C major over G, and then it goes to F major 7, which, if you don't know, is again, I'll explain it again. It's F major, normal F major chord, and then the top note is taken down to an E, which has this, again, sad but slightly beautiful vibe to it, which fits in with the vibe of the song again. I love when all of these things tie together. Maybe I'm just tying them together myself, but I feel like Lil Kana really thought this all through.
He's a clever guy.
He is a clever guy.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we need to come up with some kind of jingle for Zach's Theory Corner, like with a kind of little choir just going like, Theory Corner.
Oh yeah, like with some incredibly complex harmony underneath it.
Well, obviously.
Indeed, yeah. Some
just all 12 semitones just in a row.
Yeah. So, Zach, you can work on that for next episode. And anyway, so we'll move on to my niche single finally, and I'm going to have to. Well, I'm very proud. It's the most, well, at least statistically, it's the most niche of all of them. Laying down at 5,507,220 streams. But I do have to apologize because we're repeating an artist. This is a song called Disco Ulysses by Wolfpack, who we talked about in the first episode. But I couldn't help myself because I was kind of going through Wolfpack and I was really surprised that this song had so few streams because it is so funky. I have a big thing for just funk guitar, and that's all there is in this song. It's amazing. I'm going to play it now, but also I'll say listen out for the intro because there's some interesting time signature things going on. It's quite hard to kind of work out what exactly is going on, and then it comes into the groove. So have a listen out for that. So here it is, Disco Ulysses by Wolfpack. So that was Disco Ulysses by Wolfpack from their album, The Hill Climber. That's the album, right?
Yeah, The Hill Climber.
I've said that off the top of my head. Yeah, The Hill Climber. Anyway, so this is such a. I mean, it's very. When we first talked about Wolfpack, we talked about kind of slightly slower funk, slightly laid back, but kind of really well put together. And this is very similar in that it's kind of relatively small band. I think there's about 7 of them playing on this track. But it's nice in that it's kind of, so you got the piano laying down the chords, you've got really cool funk guitar, amazing bass line from Joe Dart, as always, and just and it's quite relatively slow for a kind of funk track, and it's got these kind of 2 sections. You know, it's got the main, I guess you call it chorus. It's an instrumental, so it's hard to call it that. But you got the chorus, and then you got a kind of little breakdown bit where it's just kind of piano and bass, and then they have a little bridge thing with the build up, and then it all comes back into the final chorus towards the end. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't have too much analysis, but yeah, there is an interesting thing at the beginning because they're kind of adding beats here and there. It's a bit hard to follow. I haven't actually managed to work out exactly what's going on. I just know that it's not entirely normal. They kind of add a beat and then they get into the first verse thing. I don't know what I'm talking about here. Oh God, Zach, save me.
I've got something to say. Speaking of an instrumental, there's actually a version on YouTube which someone added lyrics to. It's not great, but if you want to listen to a version with lyrics, there is one. But yeah, this song is so cool. I just love the groove. I tried to show it. This is a really dumb fact, but I used to study classical civilization, and we studied the story of Ulysses. That's not his name though. When we studied it, I can't actually remember his name because I'm bad at class civ apparently. But I tried to show my class this because in the music video, well, it's not really a music video. It's just kind of them. It's just them playing it, but they have the lyrics, not the lyrics, like a story kind of going along, and it's kind of cool. And it like tells the whole story, and it says they dance geometrically, and it's very strange, but it's very good. And I tried to show my class, and they all thought I was a loser, and they told me to turn it off. But
I wonder why.
but I think it's great because I really like the bass line, and in fact, I learned it because I was so obsessed with this song when I first heard it, and it's just a cool bop. It's just like just such head. What's the thing we said in the first episode? Head
Ultimate
bopping.
neck extension, as usual.
Ultimate neck extension. There you go. Yeah,
yes.
It's got head
very
bopping
cool,
potential. So yeah,
it's one of my
favorite
favorite washing up songs.
When
you've got
that's a
new
genre.
10 pans to wash and it's looking like a long evening.
So we've got Yacht
funk.
Rock. We've got what was it? Yacht
Washing
Rock,
Up Funk.
Washing Up Funk. What's the other one? We had another one. I can't remember it now.
Did we?
We did. It's gone from my head.
I think I found a niche genre called adult natural, which sounds weird.
That sounds weird.
It's kind of like 60s girl group, like doo-wop influenced music called adult natural. I know someone whose Spotify Wrapped most favorite genre was adult natural, and they were very confused. But it turns out it's that. So yeah. Those are all our favourite genres on the Sidetrack podcast.
Oh god!
If you have any more niche genres, do let us know.
Oh yes.
We'll do your next episode
Please
about
do.
Viking metal.
Nordic jazz.
Oh,
Anyway,
Actually,
Nordic jazz is-
there is Nordic jazz.
it's probably quite good now that I think. Anyway,
It is really good.
it-
But anyway, distracting.
on that rather sidetrack note, we will wrap up part 1. But stay around for part 2, where we'll talk to Albert more about his new album. Okay, welcome to part 2 of the Sidetrack Music Podcast. It's the artist spotlight again, and once again, the artist under the spotlight is in the virtual room with us. So Albert Genower, who goes under the artist name of Genower, the new album called The House on Nowhere Street, which is out now as you listen to this podcast. What was the kind of inspiration for, starting up such a big project?
Well, as I'm sure everyone knows, there's a bit of a pandemic, just a bit, which
Little one.
kicked off in got really bad in about March 2020, and I just had so little to do all day, because I was in the school year where we didn't have our GCSEs, so we didn't have any schoolwork, we couldn't go out, and so there was literally nothing to do. So I just sort of started recording more and more stuff on Logic, and then because it was lockdown, no one was coming to stay, so we used the spare room and sort of made it into a bit of a makeshift music studio with keyboards and MIDI drum kit and guitars and microphone and all the bits and bobs, and I sort of just spent so much time in there over the first lockdown making songs, most of which have not actually made it onto the album, but I spent so much time in there making songs that I thought, well, why don't I actually have a goal rather than just kind of sitting in here all day just playing instruments for no particular purpose. So I thought, well, I'll do it as an album.
Playing instruments for no particular purpose sounds like exactly what I do all day, every day. And what I'm going on to study to do as well.
But I just thought, if I have a goal, then I've got something to work towards, something to do, and then when the lockdown ends, I can feel like I've actually done something with my time. And as it turns out, most of what I did in that time didn't. In fact, I only think one or two of the songs from that time made it onto the album at all. But just continued with it over the summer and the second lockdown and the rest of this year. I just finished it. So, yeah.
That's brilliant. So I want to ask about a couple of the songs, a couple of my favorites from the album. So I reckon I want to start with No Devils in Hell, which is a great track. So I reckon we should play that first, and we can talk about a little bit about it. So here's No Devils in Hell from The House on Nowhere Street by Genower.
If you have the key, then I'll try another door. If you have the riches, well, I'd rather be poor. You think yourself a flower with a scent so much sweeter. Well, if that's so, no wonder I got hay fever. The scent of the petals, it'll make me gag. And every
So that was No Devils in Hell from Albert's new album. And so, Albert, I just wanted to ask, like, kind of where's the inspiration lyrically and musically for this song from?
Well, musically, there's a huge amount of, as anyone who knows them / him will know, or will be able to tell, there's quite a lot of influence from Tame Impala on this track. Specifically in the bass, something that he does in bass lines a lot, which I realized and thought it sounds really cool, so I want to do it, is he spends a lot of time on the root note, the octave up and the ninth, and sliding a lot between the octave up and the ninth, which is something that I do a lot in the main bass line of the song. And also to me, the real driving force behind the song is the synth sound, which is my Juno 106, which I really, really love, and it's a brilliant synth, and it sounds amazing. And it's the same thing, hard pan both sides, but one has got a phaser on it, so it's a really kind of wide, rich synth sound.
Yeah, I really love the synth sound in that. It's such a cool, like, I love the Junos. They're quite not a very massively produced synth, were they? They're quite like hard to get.
Well, they were pretty well produced at the time, but they're quite hard to come by now, especially in good condition. They cost more now than when they were new, which I'm not an expert on synths, but that always kind of surprises me a bit, because I would have thought they'd have been quite like cutting edge buying them in the 80s. But they sound great. And also, this track is the only track on the album which uses just standard Logic drums, because I have better drum VSTs and stuff that I was doing the other ones with, but I just thought I actually there's nothing that I would change about the drum sound, even though it happens to be a built-in kit.
Just to explain for people who don't know what Logic is, or when we keep talking about Logic, right. It's don't worry. It's a digital audio workstation, or DAW, which is like software that musicians and producers use.
Come the acronyms.
Always in music, got to use acronyms. But musicians and producers use it to make tracks. They also use it for you can use it for anything, audio recording, stuff like that. And Albert
It's like painter's canvas, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's the canvas and the tool, and also the paintbrushes and all that. It's all the tools that you use, and then you can record into it. And obviously, there's all these other instruments you can bring in, and VSTs as well, which Albert mentioned is a virtual instrument. I don't know if it is just virtual instrument, or if it's virtual something instrument, but it's it's an instrument that you can bring in, and it's all downloadable online. It's all not like a physical thing that you get. So that's.
You sound like you're marketing Logic.
I use Logic. It's my one. But no, VSTs apply to all DAWs, and Logic is just one of many, many DAWs that people can use. And it's not DAWs, DOORS, it's DAW DAWs. So yeah, just to clarify for that. But Albert, back to you about something you were saying about the Juno, I think.
So I have better software drums than the ones that come built into Logic. Ostensibly better ones, but this was one where the kind of built-in standard stock drums I thought sounded really good. So it kind of goes to show that it's not necessarily about having the most high end or the best stuff, but it's more like what suits the song the most.
Yeah. That's very true.
And lyrically, it takes a lot of inspiration from John Cooper Clarke, who is one of my favourite poets, and referenced in the album title. It's a line off one of his, but there's also another double meaning to it, which I can get to later. But he has a poem. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
No, absolutely not. We'll bleep it out if you want to swear, but
well, no, it's just the name of the. Well, it's the name of the poem, so.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a 4-letter word, and it's a poem by John Cooper Clarke, which is fairly well known. Which is I listened to and read, and it's so bitter and angry, and has so many just brilliant lines and insults, like I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's and I was in a really angry mood when I wanted to write these lyrics. There are a lot of things to be angry about. One that I will divulge in a public sphere is the fact that we had just gone into our third coronavirus lockdown, and it was dragging on and on and on, and it just seemed to be worse than ever. There are also other reasons, but that was
more personal reasons that we will not get into on this podcast.
And so I took like a lot of lyrical inspiration from that poem with how I was feeling at the time, and I hope that the song that's come out of it is good.
I think it's very good. So that's one of the tracks we've talked about. So that was No Devils in Hell, if anyone needs reminding of what it's called. The next track we were going to look at is called Up Through the Creek. And this is another one of favourites of mine and Albert's, I think, as well. And so we're going to play that now as well, and then we'll talk a bit about it afterwards. So here's Up Through the Creek.
November rain falls in December, beginner's luck, I still remember. I'll be ready. It's so heavy. And though now things may seem bleak, no, this is no place for the weak.
So that was Up Through the Creek from Albert's new album. And again, I want to ask a sort of similar question. What was the musical inspiration and the lyrical inspiration as well?
Well, I can cover lyrical inspiration pretty easily, because this is one of the two songs on the album with literally no meaning. like none.
I love how you just admit that.
Well, because I wrote a song and I thought, I can't think of anything to write this about, and I like the song and I don't want to ruin it with some like pseudo deep lyrics. So I couldn't get anywhere with the lyrics, so I thought, well, I'm just going to try and incorporate a bunch of references to songs that I do like. So, if you're interested in that, then I suppose you could go and try and work out the songs or lyrics and other songs that I'm making reference to.
Go find all the Easter eggs.
Exactly, but it has no meaning. So that's the lyrics cover. That was easy.
That is the meaning.
Are you saying that life has no meaning as well? Like
it's deep.
Oh, that's so deep.
Yeah, it's way. Look, it's just so many layers of deep. The humans can't understand it.
I see.
Oh yeah, that's right. Albert's not human. I forgot to mention.
No, I don't understand it.
Oh, I see.
That's why I said it's meaningless. It's actually got too much meaning for me to comprehend. Mind.
There is something I wanted to touch on that you use a lot in a lot of your songs, which is the use of falsetto singing. Because I think we've talked about it before on the podcast, so I'm probably not going to go over it again what it is, but you use it a lot, and I really think it adds a lot because you've got a very dynamic vocal range. Having played and known you for a while, I know you have a very big range, and that really shows in this album. It's quite cool. So I just want to know why you like to use that, and I don't know what I wanted to ask, but it's something to do with falsetto.
Well, my favourite band in the world is Radiohead, and you can hear in any of Tom York's singing that kind of really dreamy sort of. I don't know the names of the octaves by numbers, but the highest E string on the guitar up to the 12th fret on the highest E string on the guitar, that sort of range.
Yeah. Yes, all of us know what you're talking about.
someone who knows where that range is can help. But that sort of range, he sings in a lot. And I, even before they were my favourite band, when I was listening to a lot of like Guns N' Roses and Nirvana, which I will never try and sing like them because it would just be embarrassing. Even when I was listening to them, and knew Radiohead a bit, I always thought I sing quite a lot like this guy from Radiohead. And then I really fell in love with their music, and I thought, well, if it's my favourite type of music and I can sing like it, and they end up there. Radiohead are probably the biggest inspiration on the album as a whole, but that's something that just works its way from what I listen to a lot into the music.
Thank you. Yeah, that's cool. So back to Up Through the Creek. What was the kind of musical, like, kind of inspiration for that?
Well, it came from an alternate tuning on guitar, which to me they're like magic alternate tunings or open tunings, because it's like you've got all the if you can play the guitar, then you've got all the technique of what to do with your fingers and how to pluck the strings and do hammer-ons and pull-offs and all of that. But it's like you've got a whole new instrument if you've tuned all the strings to different notes. So this particular one, the standard guitar tuning is the notes E, A, D, G, B, E, but which lends itself to you can play lots of different chords very easily, and it lends itself to a lot of simple keys like E minor specifically is the guitarist's favorite key. But this particular one is in open G tuning, which is D, G, D, G, B, D.
Wow.
Which is a tuning used by a guy called Miles Kennedy, who is in Alter Bridge is his band, and he sings for Slash as well, but he uses it in a lot of his solo work. And I was always a big fan of him, and I learned a lot of his songs in this tuning. I thought, well, why don't I try doing something of my own in this tuning? So that's where that sort of came from. And it was originally on acoustic guitar, but I just thought, well, I'll try it on acoustic guitar, and then I tried a slightly different tempo on the electric guitar, and I happen to like that version more. But it really comes from the tuning, because as soon as you try a new alternate tuning, you never know what you can play, and you'll sort of always stumble into finding something that you like, and shapes that work and ideas that work, and that's just what happened to come out for when I played in that tuning. So that's where that song came from.
It must be quite disorientating at first.
It is. Well, I guess it's like playing a piano with all the keys in a different order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It is really disorienting. And as soon as you put unless you like Googling chord shapes or you have a book or whatever, as soon as you put it in a new tuning you've tried before and you try and play anything, it will sound horrible. You'll be playing like a F sharp major chord and a C major chord at the same time, and it'll just sound horrible.
So did you have to work out a lot of
you'll eventually sort of realize, oh, hang on, well, if this is, if this shape works and I slide it up 2 frets, and because you get a lot of chords that are technically like complex chords, just because because it's open G, the song will be in G major, and therefore, unless you're fretting all of the strings, you've got a lot of notes that are in the chord of G major ringing at all times. So, like, the first chord I play is a C, which got G in it anyway, but then next one I play is D, which D major chord, which doesn't have a G in it, but I'm still playing it with the G in it because that's just the nature of the tuning, and it creates a really nice like atmosphere and dissonance which is I think really cool.
It kind of keeps you in the key center, doesn't it? Because it kind of it really
Yeah,
solidifies that you're in G.
Pretty impossible to modulate, but it unless you want to put a capo on a different fret, but halfway through the song, but it does make it. And the pre-chorus, well, there's no singing in it, but the little instrumental bit before the chorus and up through the creek I really like the chord sequence there. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's just a lot of kind of different chords because I'm playing 5 of the 6 strings of the guitar, but I'm only ever fretting 2 or 3, which means you've got this G and D pedal ringing over these various different chords, which is something also inspired by the. So really, I didn't write it. I think the tuning probably wrote it for me.
Nice.
Well, we've talked about pedal notes in this podcast before.
We have.
How useful they can be to ground different chords and like blend them together. I think it works really well on this track as well, actually.
So yeah, that song, I want to sort of speak about the structure because it's very not acoustic. Acoustic's not the right word because it's using electric guitar, but it's the first kind of first sections until you get to the last chorus. It's clean. Yeah, it's clean and it's kind of much more chill and doesn't feel like super intense. I mean, it's still got all the same elements. Like the elements of the song don't change, but when you get to the final chorus, it feels like a massive kind of like opening up and like because the drums come in and there's more instruments. I'm not sure if there's any synths in there, but like it opens up. And I kind of just wanted to ask you about like kind of how you did that and why you did that as well.
Well, I originally I did the whole song on just acoustic guitars at first, and it's always good to do a few things differently. And when the chorus comes back, I mean, you don't have to, but it can be a bit boring if you're listening to completely the same thing. Whether you want to change the words or a bit of the melody or some of the harmonies or something. So when I'd done it on acoustic guitars, I thought this is just the same thing twice, but one section has different words. So I thought, well, I want to change it, and like I love all the kind of like real kind of classic rock music, and even up to the 90s, some of the stuff we consider classic rock. And I play a lot of guitar, and there's not really that many guitar solos on the record. So I thought I'd quite like to sort of get one in. And I'd got a new distortion pedal. I wanted to try that out. So I just felt it would be a good way to give it a lot more, especially because it's by that point of the song, if there's nothing changing and it's near the end, you're kind of getting a bit lethargic of it. Something to really kind of inject a load more energy into it at the kind of last stretch.
Did you improvise the solo?
I improvised the end bit, but the first bit is on the first sort of couple bars are with a slide, and then I did
Cool. So that was Up Through the Creek, and we spoke a lot about that. And now we're gonna listen and speak about the last song that we're gonna talk about, which is called Everything Is Made of Water. And I just want to put a little quick little note. This song made me cry, and I don't often do that with music. And it was music obviously is emotive, but this one is particularly emotive. And maybe now by me saying this, it won't make you cry because you're going to try not to. But for me, it really did make me emotional. And I think that's a really, really amazing thing to do. That doesn't happen often. So I really congratulate you, Albert, on making such a emotive track. But anyway, here's Everything Is Made of Water. Yeah.
Closer you get, the more you start to look smaller. Why should I speak when everything's made of water? And if I forget, don't let me forget. Don't let me forget. Says that the leaves won't fall
So, yep, that was Everything is Made of Water. And fortunately, I didn't cry this time. But that's probably because I cried before when I was listening to it. But no shame in that. No shame in that. And the reason why there's no shame is because it's such a brilliant song. And I could see everyone when they were listening to it. It's kind of, they're all looking into the distance. It gives you such emotive feeling. And I really, really like that. And I just wanted to ask you, Albert, what the inspiration for this lyrically and musically again, because it's just I'm very interested.
Well,
Zephyr, come on, get original.
I'm not.
Ask the same question 3 times.
I think on this one, I'm gonna leave the lyrics up to individual interpretation. But the title, "Everything is Made of Water," it's there's I don't know how you say it. I don't know if it's like Thales or Thales or whatever. He was like a pre-Socratic philosopher in ancient Greece, and
wow.
I was a bit of a nerd, if you guys didn't know.
He was shut up, and he was this guy. He was a guy who was like, hang on, like I can't remember his exact thought process, but he was like, if water is needed for life, right, and like everything exists, then everything must be made of water, right? And we know now that he's wrong. But this is like, it was like the first time in history.
I hope we know.
But it was like the first time ever that anyone had ever been like, well, maybe like had tried to like think and like use logic to explain, not the door logic,
digital audio workstation.
It's the first time anyone had tried to use kind of logic to work out why the world existed, rather than just being like, oh, it must be, the Greek gods or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's obviously a pretty clever bloke. But that's the title. And musically, this was another one that was originally on the acoustic guitar, and I'd been listening to a lot of Leonard Cohen, early Leonard Cohen, like Famous Blue Raincoat, Suzanne, that type of era. Which on acoustic guitar, you could, if I was singing it an octave lower on acoustic guitar, you could imagine that being a Leonard Cohen song. And one thing I like is the verses in 6/8 and the pre-chorus things in 4/4, which kind of takes you by surprise a bit.
Yeah, I was going to mention that actually.
Playing the same arpeggiated figure, but I'm just adding 2 more notes in. It's a very simple song instrumentally. It's only one guitar and vocals and a really subtle synth in the second half of the song. And I know it's such a cliche in music, but I really love the minor plagal cadence. I just love it so much.
You've possibly just said the most geeky thing ever heard on the podcast to date.
Albert, that is just speaking music to my ears. To all of you out there, let me demonstrate the minor plagal cadence.
Oh my days!
So it goes like, isn't that just incredible?
Okay.
That's probably the wrong key for what you used, Albert.
Well, I can't remember what key I was going in, but I had it as the and then that's very out of tune, my guitar. But
that's beautiful, man.
That is beautiful. It's way better than I played it.
I think that's the bit that probably makes me cry. It's that bit with the harmony you do in the verse. That bit where you harmonize yourself. It's a very small moment, but that bit is I don't know what the harmony is, but it's amazing.
It's only in thirds. I think it's just because like normally you get songs with like, there's like a harmony every line and stuff, and so you there's lots of instruments and there's drums and bass and everything, and it kind of gets lost. But I think because it's just those 2 lines, as soon as a third thing comes in, it really, really sticks out. It's sort of the opposite effect of what you were saying earlier with that horn part in the single that you brought.
Final Form, yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah, it's the opposite of that. But yeah, I think we've spoken a lot about Albert's songs, and we could not recommend highly enough to go listen to this album fully. And it's out, so it's all available. And I'm assuming all major streaming platforms,
on all major streaming services,
on all major streaming. Yeah, exactly. Zach had one final question to finish us off.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but being now a niche artist out there on Spotify, I was wondering how you feel about how Spotify kind of treats artists. I don't know if you know much about them, but like, would you have rather been born in an era where people bought CDs and kind of tracing sales is much easier than Spotify.
Well, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no, because they say musicians are in the t-shirt business now, but which to an extent is true, and they make most of their money not from streams, and people buying one CD is more than God knows how many streams. But so in one sense, it would have been great to be born in an era where that wasn't a problem. But also, if I was born in that era, that I wouldn't have had Logic on a laptop in my room.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have had Spotify to be able to draw influences from all of these millions of different places. And as horrible as the time was, I wouldn't have had the lockdown to have the time to be able to do it. So you never know how anything would go in a different time.
That's true. Actually, what you said about having all these resources available to you, like Logic, and being able to have your own home studio, is very relevant to this time and could never have happened.
There's never been a time that you can just go and listen to any music throughout history whenever you want, and that's such anyone who's alive today and has access to Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or anything, we take for granted how lucky we are, because 150 years ago you'd hear your favorite piece once in your life.
That's true.
Wow.
Actually. Although actually some part of me doesn't like the fact that you can just skip between each song as whenever you can. I feel like it kind of plays into this whole nobody has a attention span anymore, because before people would buy an album and listen to the whole album and get into it, but now it's more like single.
Yeah, you can still do that though. You still buy extra records. There's pros and cons of everything, but as the old moves out, the new moves in.
Yeah. Well, on such a deep note, we should wrap up. Next episode, we'll be talking about our favourite minor plagal cadences. No, I joke. It will not be that. It will be something.
Not.
Oh, I'm not listening. I'm not listening next one.
Anyway, yes. So we don't know what's going to be next episode, but I'm sure it will be captivating as always. But that was a really cool interview. Thanks for doing that, Albert. I learned a lot about the guitar and the. I just thought it was really interesting.
Very much for having me.
Yeah, a pleasure. So today we've talked about our favourite niche singles. We had Disco Ulysses, Wolfpack. We had Final Form. We had So Real and Mean It in the Morning from Loyal Kana. And then we talked about The House on Nowhere Street from Genower. So link to all our socials is in the podcast description. Please do subscribe, share the podcast with your friends if you enjoyed, and leave a review or rating as well. That really helps us grow the podcast. I know it's annoying to ask, but there it is. But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, and see you next time.
Sidetracked, the music podcast.